we know that President Trump is getting a lot of briefings from his national security team about the violence directed at ICE agents and at Border Patrol officers up and down the southern border. And he does not think that these brave men and women who are on the front lines at the border are getting nearly enough credit for what they are dealing with coming across.
I hear the new line is death. Oh, it's death. Everyone's going to die. It has nothing to do with that. In fact, we're saving our country. Death is from allowing 25 million people into our country, of which 3 or 4 are stone-cold, hard criminals. 11,888 are murderers, many of them committing more than one murder. That's death, and the Democrats did that.
The president is trying to wind down 2 wars, including the one in Ukraine, and he is sounding more and more fed up with Vladimir Putin by the day.
That was a war that should have never happened, and a lot of people are dying, and it should end. And I don't know, we get a lot of thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. It's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
We also learned this afternoon that President Trump, who will field questions on any topic, anytime, has just about had it with questions about Jeffrey Epstein.
I just interrupt for 1 second. Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
The reason people in the cabinet room were talking about it is because the FBI did put out that memo on Sunday night that concludes, based on their investigation, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself and never had a client list. But regardless, the president wants to move on now.
What did you do? What did you do? This is no place to die. No. No.
Ooh, baby. We are cooking today. A very interesting day for us, as we have been fielding phone calls constantly from the administration, and they're not pretty. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on right now inside of the administration's first, as far as I'm concerned, like massive base crisis. And it's a crisis of their own making. And it confuses me up to this very second, and I can't stop thinking about it. But we're going to push through and do what we've always done on this program, is continue to ask questions regardless of fear or favor. And we're going to do that today, Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. Trump base calls for more transparency around Epstein because that's what we were promised, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get to that. We have to thank President Trump for this. In a good way. I mean that, actually. We're going to talk about how this entire machine, the entire moment of what's happening right now is so confounding, just boggles the mind today. DOJ charges 2 people for helping out Trump's assassin in the state of Florida. Very important here. I want to get to the bottom of that. Why was this assassin looking to Ukraine for help? They want more weapons from Ukraine? The assassin that tried to kill Trump at his golf course was working with Ukraine to get weapons to kill Trump. And then we just gave more weapons to Ukraine yesterday. Oh, mamma mia. Prosecutor Mark English will be on the show today, along with other special guests. It's going to be a big one today. We're going to just talk a little bit about this, some chit-chat today. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. First off, make sure that you protect yourself, right? If you're Jeffrey Epstein and you hear the sound of 1-inch heels clip-clapping down your hallway, in a pantsuit swishing late in the evening and a noose tightening and Hillary Clinton's maniacal cackle. I ain't been no ways tired. We come too far. That's what Hillary was saying. You know it. Gallows humor, quite literally. Well, you want to make sure that you're protected, okay? Jeffrey Epstein was not protected. Or maybe Jeffrey Epstein was too protected. Do you know what I mean? Again, we're going to talk about him. What the protection I'm trying to talk about here, ladies and gentlemen, is protecting your financial assets. Now, of course, you are not a criminal, and you're not somebody who has access to the demonic globalist cult resources like some, or nefarious intel agencies all across the globe. You just got to do it the old-fashioned way, just like me. And that's why I encourage you, ladies and gentlemen, to reach out to my friends at Advantage Gold. Advantage Gold can help you legally move your IRA or 401k into physical gold and silver, avoid taxes and penalties, a little-known IRS-approved strategy. See, people like us, the little people, we have to pay taxes. It's crazy. And how to receive up to $10,000 in free gold and silver when you qualify. Protect your retirement before it's too late. Text Benny to 85545. That's Benny to 85545. Visit AdvantageGold.com for your free copy today. There's no cost, just the truth. Data and message rates apply. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professionals. Okay. Man, it's very. I wasn't planning on starting with this, but just because of us talking about the markets here today, I gotta go. Klein, go to my timeline. Check my latest retweets. Bradley Martin is who I'm looking for. Yeah, Bradley Martin putting up something very interesting here about Epstein. Keep going. There it is. Okay. This sort of gets to the heart of it all, right? This gets to the heart of it all. It's why it's not going away. I have so much to say on this, and this is off topic, but since we're starting talking about finances, why not go to this dude who's just like a fitness influencer, right? It's all he does. It's all he does is it goes to the gym, okay? It's not political at all. In fact, I saw him at UFC like a year ago. He was at UFC taking photos with Trump. Like, he seems like a totally, like, relatively apolitical dude. He's just a fitness influencer. This is the level of permeation that Epstein has in our society, okay? I'm going out of order here, but I just want to, like, let's just lock in, okay? Because I'm talking about paying taxes and we're talking about your finances. Why don't we talk about Epstein's finances? One of the craziest things about Epstein is that this guy was a billionaire and nobody knows how he got his money. The vast majority of billionaires that you can see on paper or on the Forbes list, you freaking know how they get their money. It's really obvious. They have to disclose it, actually. They have to lay it out there. The vast majority of them. Now, some people have shady stuff on the side, but like most people, it's not like I'm a billionaire and you know nothing about me. Okay? There's not that many billionaires in the world. And when Jeffrey Epstein was operating, there definitely were a lot less billionaires like 10, 20 years ago. So how did Jeffrey Epstein become a billionaire? He's probably the only billionaire that you know nothing about. You've never heard anything about how he actually made money. What exactly was he offering? What was his service? Elon Musk, let's just take this as just a broad example here. Elon Musk is a billionaire, and it's really obvious why. Millions of people use his products. He makes them, he creates them, he patents them, and he sells them. And then he makes a lot of money off that stock, off the stock of his companies and the future projections of the companies. It's like clear as day how Elon Musk makes his money, okay? As a matter of fact, it's clear as day how Donald Trump made his money. It's very public. Nobody knows how the hell Jeffrey Epstein made his money. Here's a fitness influencer, a dude that does not do politics all day, saying this. How'd this billionaire get his money, Jeffrey Epstein? The government can tell you exactly how much taxes you owe every single year, and if you pay too little, they will put you in prison. Try it. Oh, actually, don't try it, please. You'll go to jail, and I don't want you to go to jail. But they can't just deep dive into this guy's bank accounts and tell us where his money came from. It's a blatant cover-up for this entire thing. It's just shame, shame, shame. The saddest part is that a bunch of children got abused, and we're just supposed to dismiss it? Nah, bro. President Trump yesterday broke the internet in half by saying, and I think what he was trying to do was defend Pam Bondi, I think potentially, right? But what President Trump said yesterday was stop asking questions about Jeffrey Epstein. Here's the moment, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to talk about why this is impossible. And a lot of it has to do with President Trump. I mean that in a good way. President Trump's history with Epstein is something that he should be proud of. We're going to talk about it today on the show, and we're going to ask some really tough questions. Okay, here we go. Here's Trump yesterday.
Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for an American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the staff?
Yeah, sure. If
Hey, Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively, the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
Is that it on Epstein? Who decides that exactly? Well, the evidence certainly doesn't point to this being it on Epstein. The evidence points to this being a massive cover-up. A cover-up that, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why the Trump administration is walking into this bear trap. And I do believe that it's a trap. We're going to get to that in just a second. I believe that this is a setup. I believe that this is the new Russiagate. This is the new embarrassing mechanism created to trap good people inside of the Trump administration. And the vast majority of them are excellent people. We know them personally. Was Epstein an intel asset? Let's just start there. At the very logical and good question. And then the nonsensical response from Pam Bondi. Here is a FBI document. Our team has looked into this. This is a real document. It says that Epstein provided information to the FBI as agreed upon. This case is advised no federal prosecution will occur in this matter as Epstein continues to uphold his agreement with the state of Florida and federal investigators. There it is. For the prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein for child prostitution. This is the FBI back in 2008. You can see here dated September 18, 2008. Protecting their source and their asset. This is not the only time that he was protected, but it was one of many that Jeffrey Epstein had the long arm of the intelligence agencies reach in to say, no, don't touch him. As is famously crystallized by Alex Acosta when he was asked, why did you let Jeffrey Epstein off in this case so leniently. And Alex Acosta says he belonged to Intel. I was told he belongs to Intel. Don't touch him, is the exact quote. This is all of public record. And I want to pause here for a second to tell you this. President Trump's the only president in my lifetime that took a bullet. For me and for you. I believe that President Trump was sent by God to actually save this country. I believe that President Trump was spared by God to save this country by millimeters. And I believe that President Trump dodging that bullet is one of the most widely seen miracle in human history. And as a simple Christian, I'm just going to accept it prima facie, okay, as that. And I support the president and his administration. And this is why we're friends, actually, with so many in the administration, is to give tough love. This is what friends are for. When your friends get it wrong, you have to say, no, you should rethink that. You don't want to, Bill, you don't want to get divorced. You're doing this wrong. This is what like friends are for, in fact. So I want to take a real quick step back in President Trump's history here with Jeffrey Epstein. Talk about it. Yes, there are photos of Jeffrey Epstein in the late 1990s with President Trump. There are photos of Jeffrey Epstein with literally everyone in the late 1990s. His job as an Intel asset, right here, here's the Acosta article. His job working for intelligence agencies, perhaps foreign. We've covered that on the show. We asked Dershowitz straight up, hey, was he like a Mossad agent? Dershowitz like, maybe. I brought him to Israel one time, and he met with Mossad. Such a shocking moment on this program. Donald Trump has nothing, as far as I can see, to hide. President Trump, unlike every other billionaire and friend of Jeffrey Epstein, totally and completely admonished the guy, in fact, worked to get him locked up. This document right here, the feds letting Jeffrey Epstein off, this document only exists because of Trump. Here's the reason why. Because President Trump worked with the prosecution to put Epstein in jail in 2018. He banned him from his club. Donald Trump deep-sixed the guy and then went to the feds. The rumor on the street is that the cops knew about Epstein because Trump tipped him off. Of all of Trump's human failings, like being part of this grotesque, like degenerate, sick, pedo cult society, this isn't it. Trump was not down with that. You can see his actions absolutely betray and tell you precisely where Trump's head was. The prosecutor says this prosecution couldn't happen without President Trump, who helped me and gave me really important information. Why do we even talk about Jeffrey Epstein? Well, it's because of Trump. In fact, Donald Trump, when he was running for president in 2015, earliest possible days running for president, went on stage at CPAC and shocked the world when he brought up a little-known name and a very mysterious island. For many, it was the first time that we had heard anything about Jeffrey Epstein or Little St. James or Bill Clinton, for that matter. Here's President Trump beginning his presidential and political life by using correctly the Epstein vector to attack his political enemies. And it was a potent weapon, and he was right to do it. And we're thankful for Trump for doing this. Here we go.
Bill Clinton.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of problems.
And you can tell Sean Hannity didn't even know what the hell he was talking about. It's not a knock on Sean. It's just like, this wasn't something anyone was talking about. Trump knew what he was doing. He was telling the story. Trump knew about this. He knew what was happening. He knew about Epstein. He is the one that created the first Epstein prosecution that should have, in a fair world, and Donald Trump had absolutely no prosecutorial power. He had no political power. This was 2008. He wouldn't be president for nearly another decade. Trump was just a billionaire and a TV host. Trump kept talking about it, by the way, in more interviews at the same event. Here we go.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a
Sean.
problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool. So,
what a ballsy and unbelievable thing to do. Donald Trump, who knew who Jeffrey Epstein was and knew what a monster he was, naming the people on Epstein's list before any of us knew anything about it. Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, Trump was telling us the story. Trump started his political career, in fact, by saying there is a sick, predator, globalist cult that is out for children. And they're monsters. And I am thankful to God that Donald Trump normalized this conversation. He was the first to do it. Donald Trump continued. When Jeffrey Epstein was put in prison under his administration, Trump went out on the White House lawn and went scorched earth on Epstein. This is from the first admin. Go.
I was not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein, and you watched people yesterday saying that I threw him out of a club. I didn't want anything to do with him. That was many, many years ago. It shows you one thing, that I have good taste, okay? Now, other people, they went all over with him. They went to his island. They went all over the place. He was very well known in Palm Beach. His island, whatever his island was, wherever it is, I was never there. Find out the people that went to the island. But Jeffrey Epstein was not somebody that I respected. I threw him out. In fact, I think the great James Patterson, who's a member of Mar-a-Lago, made a statement yesterday that many years ago I threw him out. I'm not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein.
All of that is true. 100% of that is true. President Trump has every right to be very proud of his relationship with how, let me rephrase this, very proud of how he handled Jeffrey Epstein trying to wormhole his way into Trump's orbit. Now, some people, others, should be ashamed. Here's Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, after Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted predator, Bill Clinton maintained a strong relationship with him. Bill Clinton had Jeffrey Epstein at the White House dozens of times. There were paintings, oil paintings of Bill Clinton in lurid poses throughout Jeffrey Epstein's houses. Bill Clinton did business relationships with Jeffrey Epstein. They did partnerships. They went on charity runs. Bill Clinton was constantly on the plane or at the island. Ghislaine Maxwell was at the damn wedding of Bill Clinton's daughter. This is after Jeffrey Epstein catching a case for child sex trafficking. Ghislaine Maxwell gets an invite to Bill Clinton's only daughter's wedding. You tell me who has something to be ashamed about with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm defending Trump. Trump deserves defense here because Trump's, as far as everything we know that is public, President Trump has been on the right side of history with this man. And he deserves defense because so many other powerful people, including other presidents, are on the wrong side of history. Right here. Yeah, you won't see any photos of Jeffrey Epstein in Trump's White House, right? Visiting him as president. Dozens of times. Look at Ghislaine. They know they're going to eat Clinton alive. And this is the point. This is the point. Why is Jeffrey Epstein so important? It's a very simple answer. And it's why we're not going to stop asking the question. The answer is because the American people have a right to know if their country is run by a pederast cult. And if that's who we're paying taxes to. Because we are a good and moral people, a Christian people, and we don't want to do that. We don't want the protection of that. And more importantly, we don't want the people that we put in office to protect it either. Now, this is the thing that is this is the thing that's breaking my brain this morning that I still can't get out of my head and I still can't figure out. and why I think there's something going on that's major sabotage here. Then we're going to get into the fallout that's happening and our phone calls with the administration and what we've heard. What I can't figure out, as a guy who does this for a living, right, cover the news cycle, be extremely online, as they would say, weaponized autism, they would say, right? Somebody really, like, we track these trends, we track the divots and the ups and the downs and what people are talking about. We track it so closely. You can control a news cycle, and the Trump administration is very good at it. The Trump administration promised that we would have disclosures on Epstein. They did so many, many times, but they did so on our show. So we have a personal connection to this. An example, one that's going viral right now. Cash on our show in 2023. Cash on our show in 2023 said exactly where the Epstein list is and exactly what needs to happen to it. Go.
So are you, like, in closing here, I want to just be very clear. Republicans could get Epstein's list out now? Like, how would that process work?
Simple. One subpoena to the FBI. Give me the list. Oh, you don't want to give me the list and you're going to break the law and commit contempt of Congress? We're going to take your money. We're going to take Chris Wray's private jet. Taxpayer-funded G5 rides across the country to his Appalachian State vacation home, down to Georgia, and all over the rest of the place. That guy doesn't need a G5 government-funded jet. And the second you take that money, you get Epstein's list.
Here's the problem, Cash, is that they shut down the Lolita Express. So how are these guys going to fly on a private jet anymore? It's really a quandary, my friend.
That clip's going thermonuclear viral right now. And many other questions from our interviews with Kash Patel and other powerful people, the most powerful people in the world. We've never shied away from this topic because the abuse of children knows no party. It shouldn't have any safe quarter or haven anywhere. This should be the one thing that we all universally agree upon. And if you abuse children, then you deserve to be exposed. You have no more protections. There is no one that should come to save you or your family. Everything should be exposed. You gave up that right when you engaged in this sick and demonic activity. If you did so with the blessing of a powerful politician, or with a powerful politician, if you did so with the operational capacity of an intelligence agency, then doubly so, we need to expose you and we need to know everything so that it doesn't happen again. We don't want to pay taxes to a predator cult. This is like baseline. And the people who have brought forth this issue to their great and endearing credit is the Trump administration. Trump normalized Epstein in political circles by talking about him. Trump did this because Trump helped put Epstein in prison. Those dirty politicians got him out. These dirty intel agencies got him out. There is no reason to protect Jeffrey Epstein. And many of Trump's top officials have declared on the record that they are going to release everything. Many of them have done it on our show, including a dude who was first appointed by President Trump to be your attorney general. His name's Matt Gaetz. This is another clip that you'll see constantly in your timeline right now, and we're so proud on this program to be consistent. Listen, we've asked this question because it is the Rosetta Stone of deep state corruption, because the deciphering of what was going on with Epstein holds within it the skeleton key of everything they don't want you to know about their operations. And we know that the CIA has used child abuse in their operation. We know that the CIA, go pull up a BuzzFeed article about the serial child abuse going on with the CIA. Serial child abuse uncovered inside of the CIA. Secret CIA files say staffers committed sex crimes involving children. Would you look at that? Let's read the top line here, shall we? Let's scroll down, please. Yep. Okay. Here we go. Over the past 14 years, the Central Intelligence Agency has secretly amassed credible evidence that at least 10 of its employees committed sex crimes against children. There you go. You can go through and read the article. I encourage you to. There's something bigger here. And we're so proud of our work on this program, our small capacity, because like now these clips are all going viral. We're so proud of our small capacity to have like led to a little bit of shining a little bit of light on this. And in whatever way we could. Matt Gaetz was selected first by President Trump to be the Attorney General. We have been consistent in our asking of these questions. The answers have been wildly inconsistent. Some of the answers have aged really well. Some of them have aged very poorly. Matt Gaetz' answer here has aged really well. Here you go.
Why is the world's foremost pederast protected? This makes no sense. Like this is like evil, right? Like everyone agrees on it. It's like you got a 99%
on Epstein. Bill Barr is the one that needs to be called in to give sworn testimony on what happened there at Bureau of Prisons, because that is not that. There's just no way that the story you're getting is the real story there. No freaking way, and Bill Barr knows it.
I think most people believe that, right? And like it's like no way that that's.
I actually think it was
true.
I actually think that on Epstein, it was a foreign government that took him out. I don't think it was a domestic enterprise.
Really?
I do. I'm not going to say which one, but I don't think it was domestic inspired to take out of him. I think that was a foreign operation, government sponsored.
So foreign operation took out Epstein inside of our prison.
Yes.
So they must have been allowed to.
Oh, I think it was in concert with people in our government.
Wow.
But not at like some, low level guard getting bribed kind of way.
Yeah.
At a state to state level.
So that's probably a lot of partied interests in keeping that under wraps.
You better believe it. Weapon systems at play, global deals at play.
Interesting. You have evidence to back that up?
Oh, yes. I mean, he does. Is this why Matt Gaetz wasn't the Attorney General? I don't know, man. I don't know. All I know is that we on this program can humbly, also proudly stand by our work on this, that we have been consistent on this, asking powerful people these questions, sometimes uncomfortable questions. We asked Dershowitz about this. Dershowitz was Epstein's lawyer. We asked Dershowitz about Epstein, did a whole show on it, asked him everything. And Dershowitz alluded to Epstein potentially being run by Mossad. It's insane. Nobody's ever gotten that on the record. But the point is that there's so much more here. And the case isn't closed. And it won't be closed. And this is like a thermonuclear Streisand effect, where if you keep yelling about something and saying don't ask the question, people are going to ask further questions. It's going to confirm our worst suspicions, in fact, about Epstein. It's not going to shut it down. It's why some of Trump's strongest supporters, most ardent supporters, and close friends are out bitterly on this topic. Here's Tucker Carlson yesterday.
Actually. So let's just assess this logically. They're covering up the DOJ, the current DOJ under Pam Bondi is covering up crimes, very serious crimes by their own description.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they doing that?
Yeah.
So there are really only two potential explanations that I can think of. Maybe you've got another. The first is that Trump is involved, that, Trump is on the list, that they've got tape of Trump doing something awful. I don't believe that for two reasons. One, I've talked to Trump about it a lot. And I know him. He's not that, for whatever his sins. I don't think he's that guy, actually. I don't think he likes creepy sex stuff. That's just my view. But more, I think, convincing is that this is all information that the Biden administration had. And if there was evidence that Trump had been involved in illegal sexual activity, you think the people who made up Russiagate wouldn't have leaked it?
Right.
Come on now. So the only other explanation that I can think of, again, maybe you've got another, is that intel services are at the very center of this story, U.S. and Israeli, and they're being protected. I think that seems like the most plausible.
That's the most obvious. If you have a history.
And now we get to the final part that breaks my brain and has kept me up, quite frankly, all night, that I can't figure out. So let's say that was the conclusion. The conclusion is, and we've heard this a million times, sources and methods, right? Here's a photo of Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein having a nice fancy dinner. Sources and methods. That Jeffrey Epstein was a gun for hire being operated by multiple intel agencies. Of course, he has direct connections to the CIA. We've covered that. He has direct connections to the FBI. We've covered that. He has direct connections to Mossad. We've covered that. And other foreign intel agencies like the French, the British, and so on. And his job was to create compromat on some of the world's most powerful people. Let's assume that that was the op. And that you can't say anything about it because it will compromise your sources and methods, right? You'll never be able to give us these hard drives, right, with the evidence tape wrapped around them that Epstein put there. The FBI didn't put it there. That's how the FBI found all the hard drives, with the evidence tape wrapped around them. Let's say this is the case, which does seem logical. And you're not going to be able to do anything else on this case because it will reveal so much nefarious activity inside of the intel agencies, and you're going to have to protect them for whatever reason. Why release the memo the way that you did? In the history of following this stuff, I have never seen anything more ham-handed or botched or destructive than the way that they released this memo. In the dark of night, 9 p.m., on a Sunday, after a series of historic wins for Donald Trump. I mean, Trump at the very height of his power, after diffusing Iran and Israel, after diffusing Gaza, after diffusing so much around the world, President Trump, economy roaring, so many things going in his favor, just passed the big, beautiful bill. Why release it to left-wing media? So they leak it almost like as an insult to left-wing media, to a left-wing reporter who hates Donald Trump, by the way, if you go check that reporter's byline, and hates J.D. Vance. Why would you release it like this? Like, it seems like, on its face, insult to everybody who has cared about this issue. Let's say you have to say the sources and methods stuff because you have to protect the intel agencies. Okay, fine. That's fine. But you control the story. You control the narrative. So you could find it was atrocious timing. The timing was terrible. A series of like historic wins that is cementing the MAGA base and fusing everyone together, and all these different disparate groups are like tentatively and slowly returning. Right? It's very good. You got to keep that coalition together. Why shatter it with something like this right now? If this is the conclusion you must come to, okay, let's say they have no choice. They do have a choice. We're going to get to that in just a second. But let's say you have no choice. Then at the very least, you do this on Fox News. At the very least, you go to Bret Baier, Martha McCallum, and you sit down for an hour. And you explain your work. You explain yourself. Maybe you bring a bunch of evidence to that interview. You reveal it live. You show the prison tape. And you explain it. If there is a missing minute, you damn well better know about it and not be caught off guard by it, which they were. And you go through and you explain why that is. Slowly. Confidently. And with the full understanding that not everyone's going to be happy with it. But at the very least, you're not trying to sneak around the issue. That's the thing that boggles my mind. That's the thing that is breaking my brain right now. The trust us, bro. We looked into it. Move along. That's not the country we live in anymore. And it's not the Trump administration's fault. They didn't break the machine. The machine was broken decades before they assumed power. The machine was broken in 2018. Here's the document again from the FBI saying Epstein's ours. Stay away from Epstein. And Trump wasn't in power at this time. Kash Patel wasn't in power. I don't even know what Kash Patel was doing at this time. Bongino was what? Podcasting? Was Bongino still in the Secret Service? Right? Obama, like what? Obama's president? 2008? Maybe the end of the Bush years? None of these people had power. These systems were broken and destroyed decades before they got here, but they're still acting as though these institutions have the full faith and trust of the American people. Trust us. It's good. Don't worry about it. No! You must show your work. So the timing of this boggles the mind. I'm angry that Trump is put in this situation. I'm wondering, like, how much of these decision matrices went, through official channels. And the one thing that I'll reveal about my conversations over the last couple of days with people inside the White House and outside of the administration is a deep and abiding frustration and boiling anger over how this has been handled and how this has been released. There is a way to release it. We talked about it yesterday. Where is all of that damn evidence? All the evidence that we constantly put up on the show. All the evidence that even CNN is talking about. What the hell is wrong with us, man? Jake Tapper on CNN talking about how much evidence there is and how the DOJ is lying about this. Because Jake Tapper has access to what we have access to, which is the government's own documents right here showing tons of evidence that is currently in lockup in the Southern District of New York. The DOJ has access to it. It's what's called under seal because there is a ongoing appeal right now with Ghislaine Maxwell, and so that's how they're hiding the evidence. You'll notice here. Here's a good example. You'll notice that there's an NYPD. There's NYPD logos on those shirts. There's FBI and NYPD right there in this house during the Epstein raid of Little St. James. So this is where it is. It's all sitting there in New York in lockup. Whatever has or hasn't been destroyed. But according to my sources, like again, once the feds like lock something up and get evidence entered into the system, it is really tough to destroy it. My sources tell me that it's not because the evidence has all been destroyed. Although they say that the CIA is very good at that. And the CIA, whatever they have, might have been destroyed. But FBI and Main Justice, that all this absolute mountain of evidence sits in lockup under seal. And we know that because of the federal government's own photos and documents and videos. But they're going to act like we're dumb and we can't see them and can't read them ourselves. And I cannot believe I have to do this, but here's Jake Tapper sounding like Tucker Carlson saying, what's going on? The government's lying to us. There's obviously enormous amounts of evidence that they refuse to release to the public. Here we go.
So what's really going on here? I mean, what's really going on? Well, experts, such as our friend Julie Brown from the Miami Herald, who's been covering Epstein for years, say that the notion of Epstein having an easy-to-access client list is likely a red herring. And that's what the Trump administration is relying on, that there likely isn't a list per se. But they are also now relying on the fact that because it's MAGA influencers who often put forward so many falsehoods, legacy news media won't push the point, that while there might not be a list, there are certainly files that can be released. There's a trove of information that the Trump administration is right now refusing to share. Information that could well point to the powerful folks who availed themselves of the sex trafficking victims of Jeffrey Epstein. If you go, for example, to the FBI vault online, you can see that there are 22 files containing thousands of pages. Most of them are heavily redacted. Now, sure, of course, redact the names and identifying characteristics of the victims. But why not make the victim and witness testimonies public? As Julie Brown points out, there's still so much we don't know, from the investigations by U.S. attorneys in Miami and in New York, witness interviews in the U.S. Virgin Islands and New Mexico. Brown writes that there's still more evidence that hasn't been published, including, quote, Epstein kept video cameras in most of his residences, and Epstein's autopsy, nor the report of the investigation into his death, has ever been made public. So while there may not be an official client list to be released, as the administration is now saying, there's a lot of extra information that is not being made public, despite Trump's Justice Department basically now saying case closed. This isn't going to go away. The public, you're being played for fools here.
I'm angry. I'm a Trump ally. I know so many people in the administration. I know those people are calling me and they're very angry about it. And of course, if you look the same way that we do constantly, you can see that on the DOJ's own website, FBI's own website, there are files with massive redactions. There are witness statements. There are hundreds of victims. You're going to sit there and say that there were hundreds of child abuse victims and you're not going to go after the abusers? What country do we live in? I can't believe that I have to say it, but Jake Tapper's right. He's right. That clip is right. There's so much more evidence. So to say the case closed, shut up, stop talking about it. We looked into it, bro, move along. It doesn't work anymore. And even Trump's most ardent supporters are breaking on this. Bannon, Tucker, Megyn Kelly. Here's Megyn Kelly's take on the cover-up, saying this is a massive cover-up. She's calling for Pam Bondi's resignation. Here we go.
Kind of an attorney general would pretend she's giving new information to some of the president's most loyal advocates in the press, buying ink by the barrel. So either Pam Bondi knew she was about to embarrass some of his most loyal surrogates out there and did that willingly, or she didn't take the time to make sure what was in those binders. She was too lazy to actually figure out none of this is new. And yet she called a meeting with the influencers that included Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, and the sitting vice president. So she's either lazy and incompetent, or she willingly humiliated some of the president's most loyal supporters. Neither one of those is good, and that's why I'm sorry, but I'm going to predict her days are numbered as a member of the Trump administration.
I'm not going to bring him on the show, even though he happens to be live, even though he happens to be literally live here in the studio. But ALX was among those group of Trump-supporting influencers who were brought to the White House and had an enormous amount of character assassination done by the fumbling of this topic. And I just cannot, for the life of me, figure out why. These are Trump supporters. These are people that fight in the MAGA movement. Some of them have been on the show. Scott Pressler's been on the show for sure. Libs of TikTok. ALX was there. ALX got a binder. Why would you do this? Again, that is the remaining question. And the more they say, the more they Streisand affect this and say, don't ask questions, bro, move along, the more people are going to ask questions, the more our worst suspicions are confirmed. And that's the thing that just, again, the thing I cannot get out of my skull is why do it this way? Why do it that way? Why do this? If there is no Epstein files, why hand them the Epstein files? It was already public information. It's what most people don't get, that it was public information that was unredacted, and they redacted it in the binders. So extra salt on the wound. Extra insult to some of the president's top supporters. Why do that? Well, we found out in phone calls. Apparently nobody at the White House knew that this was going to happen. Knew that this was about to happen. It was a total surprise to them. And I wonder about this memo. The timing seems so suspicious. It seems so strange. It's just not helpful in any way. And it shatters a very good news cycle for the president. Patrick Bet-David is a close friend of President Trump. Trump's been on his show a couple of times. They know each other. So, and same with Jesse Waters, obviously. Jesse Waters and Patrick Bet-David are friends of the president. They're saying this is the single biggest fumble of the entire Trump administration, that it's a nightmare. And we agree with them. Here we go.
The number one trending hashtag right now on X is Epstein. 2 million people have tweeted with the topic of Epstein. Number two is Nicki Minaj at 100,000. Comey's at 42,500. There is a reason why people are asking about this. This is by far, and I'm a supporter. 3 times I voted for this man. This is by far the biggest fumble of the administration they've had thus far. And here's the reason why. If you remember the president winning, he had a conversation with Fox News, the great Rachel Campos Duffy, and she asked, Mr. President, 9/11, yes. John F. Kennedy, yes. Epstein, he didn't say yes. He was a little bit hesitant of bringing that information out. Why? So why does his leadership team go out there and are like, we have this information and we're going to release this and cash? And let me tell you what we have with Pam Bondi out of the state of Florida. She knew everything about Bondi, about Epstein. Why are you fumbling this? Why are you not having an emergency meeting together to conversate and say, hey, we're going to be on the same page with messaging on this. All you have to do is send a message to everybody, say, God, let's have a conference call. Here's what we're going to be saying about this, because this was a very important issue to not 80% of the voters that voted for President Trump, but I think 20% of the voters wanted to know what's going to happen with Epstein, and it's a big letdown. I totally get the big victories. Tariff, $300 billion valuation this year. How much money is going to come from tariffs? Last year, the government only got 80 billion or so. That's like a company increasing their valuation by 4x. Massive victory. The stuff that's going on with, different areas we're winning. What happened with, Iran, the back and forth, the conversations. I think this was the biggest fumble when it came down to Epstein. And the more they answer like that, the more attention you're going to draw to. People are going to ask, why are they so nervous about this? What do you know that the rest of us don't know? If it's just the fact that you want to hold people blackmail, is that the relation between everything? Everyone's read the stories. It's not like we don't know what it is. It's not like the only thing people watch nowadays is Fox. People watch Twitter. People go X. People go CNN. People go ChatGPT. People know what happened with this guy. But my biggest suggestion, let's not have another fumble like the one we just had here, because this was the biggest fumble by the administration.
It's not a good look when Epstein's own brother is coming out talking about how stupid you are. Jeffrey Epstein's brother rips feds for ruling pedophile's death as a suicide. I laughed at how stupid it was. Jeffrey Epstein's brother said he laughed at how stupid the feds are for suddenly ruling out the possibility that the pedophile brother's jail death was anything but a suicide. Every time they say something or do something or try and quash the fact that he was most likely murdered, they put their foot further in their mouth, Mark Epstein said. And I'm going to want the Dr. Baden interview after this. Just FYI. I know that ALX grabbed it. He highlighted how FBI Director Kash Patel listed his credentials as a prosecutor, saying a suicide when you see it. That's basically what he said, Epstein said dismissively. Mark Epstein noted that Patel is not a forensic pathologist and that he had no medical degree, and questioned whether he even been a Boy Scout merit badge for aid, and confirmed that his brother killed himself in Manhattan in 2019. He noted 2 medical examiners involved in the autopsies, Kristen Roman and Michael Baden, who were unable to give firm rulings. The brothers suggested they pointed more to a homicide with Jeffrey Epstein. The reason that it points to a homicide is because there are broken bones in his neck. And I want to just stop for just a very quick second here and can we just look very quickly at, let's just assume the full government's case. Okay, let's assume everything that they said about the death of Jeffrey Epstein was true. We know it's an absolute falsehood what they said about his client list. Of course there's a client list. It's under seal right now in Ghislaine Maxwell's case. They made a deal that Ghislaine Maxwell's 2,000-page name and address book doesn't get made public. We know there's a client list, obviously. We know there's blackmail because we've covered how Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed Bill Gates when Bill Gates had an affair with a young Russian who was half his age. These are all matters of public record, not open for debate, okay? It's there, it's real. We know that Jeffrey Epstein's accusers said that Bill Clinton liked him young. We know that. It's in the literal documents. So let's just look at the Epstein death. This man is in the most secure federal prison facility that exists. Rudy Giuliani was on the show. He was talking about how secure that prison is, that nobody escapes that prison, the Manhattan Federal Penitentiary in downtown Manhattan. The worst of the worst are put there. Jeffrey Epstein was in maximum lockup. Jeffrey Epstein was on the most secure floor, in the most secure tier, in the most secure cell. In fact, the diagram of the prison, you can see that Jeffrey Epstein's cell is directly across from the prison guard. You can look, the guard can look right at it. And he kills himself? He was already on suicide watch. Do you know this? Jeffrey Epstein was already dinged for trying to kill himself once. All these bruises around his neck. And in that environment, Jeffrey Epstein was given extra linens and a cell by himself and a place to hang himself from, not a mattress on the floor, but like an actual metal mattress to hang himself from. This is just assuming the federal government is telling the truth and that he definitely killed himself 100%. Yep, he killed himself. Yep. Okay, just assuming that. I don't believe that. But even still, it is a massive scandal that somebody can pull that off in the federal penitentiary system. Even still, it's like the feds gave him the tools to kill himself and then told him to go do it. Also a scandal. Was Kash Patel in that autopsy room? No. Was Kash Patel in prison when they found Jeffrey Epstein? No, I don't think so. And if he was there, that raises a bigger question, says Mark Epstein. When Kash Patel came out with his statement, I laughed at how stupid it was. The Department of Justice stated in a memo that there was no evidence that the predator was killed by somebody else in the Manhattan prison. What's crazy is that we went through this yesterday. This thread is wild about how inconclusive the footage is and how the footage doesn't show Jeffrey Epstein's cell. It doesn't show even the cell tier door. It doesn't even show the wing of the prison that Epstein's in. It just shows the greater overall entrance to the floor of the prison that includes massive amounts of cells. You can't see the entry to Jeffrey Epstein's prison cell. That's what the angle of Jeffrey Epstein's prison cell entry would look like. That's what the guard would see if they looked up. That's Epstein's door right there. This is why it's fascinating. When Alan Dershowitz was asked about this, he was Epstein's lawyer. And I know there's nothing but hatred for Dershowitz in this audience. I get it. But you know, it's a good source of information here. When Dershowitz was on a different show, I think it was Kim Iverson, he was asked about this and he goes, oh, no, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. The guards helped kill him. I'm sorry, say what now? This was Epstein's lawyer saying, no, you don't understand. The guards killed Jeffrey Epstein. Well, I guess that would explain all of the extra linens and the broken bone in his neck. Do we have that? I know we posted it yesterday. That's fine. It's totally fine. You can just put up the tweet when you pluck it up. It's on the feed. So to do all of it is to insult our intelligence. To go through all of this, to put us through all of this is to insult our intelligence. It is frustrating. Alan Dershowitz shocks a reporter. Did Epstein kill himself? No, of course not. He didn't kill himself without the help of some people. He killed himself with the help of the guards. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess so, actually, based on all available evidence that the feds released. I mean, it does actually show that, shockingly. None of it makes sense. There's so many strange things. It would take us the next 3 years to go through everything that is totally and completely incongruent with the federal government's story here. And the lingering question is why? Well, he belongs to an intel agency, and we don't want to give up all the intel agency assets. And we know the CIA already has a child predator problem. Okay, but then why do it now? And why do it in this way? And why leak it to left-wing media? And why do it in this current environment? Why do it in a way that's going to drag good people from the Trump administration into it and then smear them? The whole thing to me smells like a setup. The whole thing to me smells like people who aren't locked in and focused enough on their jobs and are treating this flippantly without realizing that we don't want to pay taxes to a child predator cult. And that's our right as the American people. And we actually run this country. And they don't. And so you don't get to tell us what we should care about or not care about, or what questions we can ask and can't ask. In fact, the more you do that, the more you guarantee that we'll be talking about Jeffrey Epstein till kingdom come. Until the administration actually comes out with all of the evidence and does what they did in the JFK files by releasing tens of thousands of documents, many of them embarrassing for the government, many of them quite fascinating, a lot of them boring. But at the very least, that's a trust bond with the American people. Here's everything. That's what Tulsi Gabbard did. That sure released the pressure release valve. That moved the pressure release valve for JFK assassination. In a good direction. In like a we trust each other direction, which is good. Ladies and gentlemen, they haven't done any of that. They've done the opposite. So they've increased the pressure and done unspeakable and unnecessary damage in the way that they actually handled this. My final thought on this before we move on. Do we have the pathologist? Fascinating. Yeah. It's just fascinating. Just to show you how embarrassing. Okay, just because we talked about it. Listen to this guy, and we haven't played this clip in ages. It's a years-old clip. Listen to this pathologist. This man actually did the autopsy on Epstein. He actually was there. There are so few people that were there. We weren't there. We can just speculate. Many people. Kash Patel wasn't there. Neither was Bongino. Neither was Bondi. This guy was physically managing the autopsy. And he said he was killed. His neck bones were broken, idiots. You don't break your own neck bones in committing suicide. Nobody's that strong. It's actually impossible. Your body doesn't move that way. Something broke his neck. Listen.
Thanks so much for coming on. If you wouldn't mind just summarizing for us what we know, or what you know, about Epstein's death.
Well, I was present at the autopsy, and there were 3 fractures in the windpipe that are much more typical of crush injury from homicidal strangulation than from hanging. There were petechial hemorrhages in the eyes, again, more typical of homicide. And the ligature imprint on the neck didn't match the ligature that was present in the cell made from a sheet. So I thought that made it more likely that this was a homicide than a suicide. But we never got to find out how the body was found. Was he found hanging or not, for example, because the two guards were sleeping through that time. He was dead for a few hours before he was found. And the 2 guards never made a statement that was released as to how the body was found. The body was just cut down and brought out to a hospital where he was pronounced dead.
It's unbelievable. Where are the congressional hearings on this?
Yeah. Where are they? Where are they? It's the final thing I can't figure out, but I'll give the Trump administration the roadmap to restore or to begin the restoration of trust here. And this is the only thing that will ever stop this question. You got to release it all. You got to say, we trust you. It's going to be embarrassing. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt some of our allies. It's going to hurt the foreign nations that he was working with. It's going to damage this or that. There might be a lot at stake, but we're going to release what we can. There's going to be some redactions. You're going to see everything. You're going to see what the op was. We're going to see what he was doing. You're going to see who was doing what. Virginia Roberts, one of the chief Epstein victims, has a diary. It's awful. It's on my timeline. Alex, can you grab that? The last thing I'll ask for here. Virginia Roberts has this diary. It's just terrible. And she's talking about how Epstein would was trafficking her and was filming everything. And it's a zero hedge tweet. It's a zero hedge tweet on my timeline. Yeah. And how they were there it is. Yeah. I used to be watched by Epstein's hidden cameras, which I have seen myself. The FBI has the archive footage showing me being abused by other men. It was being used as blackmail. This is from her private diary. Okay, well, I'm prone to believe this young woman who was targeted and trafficked by Epstein for decades and had a multi-million-pound payout by the royal family, got Prince Andrew stripped of his title. You're going to have to be out with it. It's the only way to end it. If what Epstein was up to was so sensitive and was so damaging to our intel community and foreign intel communities that you can't talk about it and you can't release it, then you need to tell that to the American people. You just say, sorry, not this one. You can't run a campaign saying you're going to do this and then slam the door shut. You can't do it. On the way that we started, which is that we actually have President Trump to thank. President Trump should be proud of what he's done on this issue. We have President Trump to thank for the mainstreaming and mainlining of this issue. And in some of his earliest days in politics, he's the only one who was talking about it, showed incredible bravery, and the only case that Epstein ever caught was because of President Trump. So this administration should take the W, should turn around, reverse course, should listen to their base, and should say, nope, out with it. Set up a special counsel. Set up a special team of third-party investigators to go after the DOJ, the Bureau of Prisons, the FBI, to go after prior administrations. Why should Trump and this administration suffer for the sins of prior administrations? They didn't do this. Why is the Trump team taking the fall? The thing that keeps me up at night. Why is the Trump team taking the fall for the sins and demonic evils of other administrations? That is the lingering question, ladies and gentlemen. We're posting a lot on it. Will there be more breaking news on this? I'm not sure. I have a feeling, though, we're not done with this one yet. I know that for a matter of fact. Lock in, ladies and gentlemen, in your cellular device. In times of breaking news, use the network that keeps us connected and on the ready for times like these. Patriot Mobile is that connection. Here's the truth. There's only one cell phone brand that stands in the gap for every American that believes in freedom and believes that freedom is worth fighting for, is Patriot Mobile. The good news is that you can switch today without sacrificing quality or service. They're available on all three major networks. They keep us connected when we are on the road, and they make sure that we stay connected. We've been doing a lot of reporting from the field. We're going to continue that, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure that you are locked in and that you are supporting companies that support you, especially when it comes to freedom of speech, something that we will never, ever give up on this program. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code Benny to get a free month of service. Switch today, patriotmobile.com/Benny. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some breaking news out of Florida. We have a Florida attorney who will be joining our program to talk about it. DOJ charges 2 people for helping Ryan Ralph, alleged Trump assassination plot. This is wild. Ryan Ralph was the man who tried to murder Trump at his golf course here in Florida. And now they have charged 2 accomplices. Justice Department has charged 2 people in North Carolina for helping Ryan Ralph obtain the SKS-style rifle as part of an alleged assassination attempt on Donald Trump at his Palm Beach golf course. The co-conspirators, Tina Brown Cooper and Ronnie J. Oxendine, were both charged in March and have already pled guilty. Their cases have not been publicized until now. Neither Cooper nor Oxendine knew that Ralph was planning to kill President Trump. According to DOJ, Ralph called Cooper, who was an employee at a roofing business, to procure the rifle. Cooper recommended Ralph buy the firearm at a pawn shop, and so they got him. They hit him with a charge of assistance in all of this. Oxendine apparently didn't know Cooper was buying the gun for Ralph. When they all showed up at the business, Oxendine was surprised to see Ralph, who had been hadn't been seen there in over a decade. This, again, a very mysterious and strange story that has no real answers. We'll see how quickly that one's covered up. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Eiglarsh is a former prosecutor here in the state of Florida. He joins us to put a little bit of actual prosecutorial muscle into this story. We're interested to hear what he has to say. Welcome, Mark. Mark, thank you for being on the program. Thank you for your patience. This is a really tough moment for the administration because there's so much demonstrable evidence that is in the public arena that we can see is clearly held by the feds, yet they say that there's nothing else there. Can you explain what's actually happening here when it comes to evidence under seal and under federal custody?
Yeah, first of all, they created an expectation in all of us that there was something major that was going to come out. We didn't do that. They did. And expectations, I always say, are future resentments. We raise our expectations, and then when we don't get what we want and we're frustrated, and then the leader of the free world gets on us for asking additional questions like he did the other day, that's a problem. So what happened was, look, there may be, I'm not jumping on the everybody's guilty, something nefarious bandwagon like you are, although I can be convinced. I just need to know more. At a minimum, the way they handled this is so grossly inappropriate that I don't know. I think Megyn Kelly's call for Bondi to leave isn't completely unjustified if we need to rely upon the words that flow from her lips in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's most important here is, and I know many of these players personally, they've been on the show, and many of their clips are going viral from old interviews. And we've been asking about this for a long time, Mark. They want to restore trust. They want to restore faith in these institutions. They must have it for operational ability. They have to have it in order to do their jobs. They can't have every single job that they do tainted and shadowed by what the American people perceive as a cover-up.
Can we go back to something that let's go back to that moment? Because I do a lot of TV appearances, and sometimes I say things because I'm tired or I misunderstood or it's put in a different context. And then I don't have the chance to go back on TV and clarify. She's in a different boat. So when John Roberts asked her there was nothing ambiguous about what he asked, about the list, not about the file being on your desk, but the list. Now she responded and now claims it was about the file and not specifically about the list. I'm saying that's a possibility. I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, and I'm saying there's a chance that she actually inadvertently misled us all. So how do you handle it? You don't have someone from the White House be your talking person. You get in front of the American people and you do something that we don't see with politicians. It kills me. And that is, I screwed up, folks. I inadvertently responded to the question about the list by talking about the file. And I understand why you all believed erroneously that there was a list that I had seen, but I apologize for that. Moving forward, I'm going to do better. We don't get anything near that. We were dismissed for even asking additional questions. Yes. And that, to me, the way it was handled, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt, but the way she handled it up to this point stinks.
Yeah, Mark, can you talk me through what it means to have so much evidence under seal? Is that this is what we found from our sources in the government, that there is pending appeal for Ghislaine Maxwell's case, and so much of that evidence is kept tightly bound up in the Southern District of New York, and that it cannot get accessed by the FBI. Only Maine justice could access that evidence with the approval of a judge. And that's why there is this brick wall there. Does that stand to reason, given your legal background?
That happens. Look, I'm not an expert at that level. I'm the guy who's demanding everything all the time as a defense attorney, and they only give me, what they feel like giving me. So I do understand that stuff does happen. But when you look at all the other things that have gone on in this case, everyone has every reason now to be suspect on their responses. And here's the other thing that kills me. If I hear one more time, there's child pornography, and we're not going to give out child pornography. Who the hell is asking for that? Nobody is. Stop saying we want that. We understand that if you put out information that we so desperately need, that's not going to be part of the material that we receive. We don't want to see that. It is disturbing. Nobody wants it. What we want is all the other stuff. And if you have to heavily redact it, I understand, to protect the victims. The Privacy Act absolutely guarantees their protection. But what about the rest of the stuff? You know, that's what we want access to.
Why not give it? Why not give access to it? I mean, it just seems like such a basic practice in establishing trust is, you know, here, for instance, on the screen is a manila envelope. We see this. It's in the federal government's own records. It's a manila envelope with a bunch of passports. That's weird. Some of the passports didn't have, it was Epstein's photo, but not his real name. So the pseudonyms. That's strange. Very odd. Like that, he's dead. He's a pedophile. He's dead. Why does he have protections? Why can't we just see that? The other thing is a box of diamonds. This is just in this photo. There's a lot in this photo, but that's a box of diamonds. Like, where'd they come from? Where are they now? Who gave them to him? Like, this isn't predator material.
Right.
Why not just show us these things to start, like, piecing together the constellation of who Jeffrey Epstein was and what he was doing?
You know what I say in response? I ask the same question. Why don't they show it to us? Especially now, when Donald Trump said, you know, I mean, condemned. It wasn't even like dismissive. It was condemning those who inquired about it. And Pam Bondi then said, no, I'll handle it, Donald. I'll handle it. And then she didn't handle it. It raised more questions. Yeah. So what you can release, just release that. We'll try to be more understanding that the rest of the stuff is to protect the victims, but just give us something. You can't tell me that 100% of the material you have is protected and somehow is going to compromise someone's privacy. I don't buy it.
I agree with you so much. In fact, that's probably the greatest insult that has been leveled against people who are asking in good faith about this, because we just don't want to pay taxes to a child predator cult. And so you should be absolving yourself of that and in no way, shape, or form trying to cover it up. I think that's a pretty honest thing to be asking. But the lurid assumption that all we want is predator material, like that everyone's like calling for them to release things and re-victimize women. No one's calling for that. Correct. And it seems to be like they came up with a response, and that was the response, which is insane to me.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I don't jump on the bandwagon though that he was murdered, that Epstein was murdered, which is a separate issue, right? Sure. I am open to learn more. Now, at first I was like, okay, so the video is missing that 1 minute because every day it jumps ahead at midnight. Okay, I got it. And then for a second, I was okay with that. I go, all right, enough already, Ben and the others who are saying this might be murder. And then I went, well, wait a second. The people at the jail know about the 1 minute. That means every day there's 1 minute that they have to do something nefarious. I'm not saying that occurred. I'm just saying against the backdrop of how we've been treated with this whole investigation, I'm not going to plausibly rule out that as a possibility.
So in your experience doing these kind of cases and explaining to the public about the cases, or explaining and working through some of the complications and technicalities here, how would you have advised this be handled, right? Let's say the government came to these conclusions. How do you handle this in a way that doesn't, blow up as a live grenade?
You treat it the same way you treat your spouse, your friend. When you owe them an explanation, you don't say, relax, stop asking me about that. What the hell? What kind of reaction is that going to get? For every action, there's a reaction. My wife tells me to relax. My wife tells me you don't need to ask questions about that. I am fixated. I am not going to stop. So the first thing you do is you don't be dismissive. You say, folks, I understand why you're perceiving this the way that you are. Let's go through it step by step. First and foremost, Pam Bondi, just hold a press conference now. Just get it out there and say, let me explain. I won't go through what I said earlier, but just let me explain what happened, just from a human nature perspective. And when you're on TV, sometimes you misunderstand. Just explain that. And have folks just go through and explain it in a calm, non-political way. Just like human to human, explain. And maybe folks like me who try to give people the benefit of the doubt will understand what you're doing. Right now, we got more questions.
Do you believe that, I mean, and it's really makes a lot of sense to me, that this is just the classic protection of sources and methods? And we see this constantly in American politics, where the intel agencies are able to just swoop in and say, nope, you're not allowed to ask these questions. It sure feels like that.
Here's how smart I am. I know that I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't like when people say, this is what's going on. I mean, that's what makes America great. First Amendment, you can do it. Others can do it. I'm not saying I know exactly the reason why we're not getting the information, why Pam said what she said, why Trump said what he said and he's acting. I don't know. And it could be something completely innocent. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my answer. I don't know.
So you're a former prosecutor or defense attorney? Sorry.
Former prosecutor.
Okay.
I worked with Janet Reno when she was down here in Miami, and then I stayed in the office. And I'm a longtime veteran defense attorney. I've practiced for over 33 years in spite of my extraordinarily youthful appearance.
33 years, you're a defense attorney. So let's say you're defending Ghislaine Maxwell, and they come out and they say, there were no clients. There's all these victims, but absolutely no customers, no clients. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for sex trafficking. Do you take that case? Do you say well, wait a second, hold on. She's in prison for mass sex trafficking to whom exactly? Do you just admitted that there were no clients? So how is my client in jail?
Well, yes, I certainly am more interested in taking a case like that. I would need to know more. I'd pick up the phone and speak with the prosecutor. And if he said something like, what Trump did, like, don't ask these questions. Well, yeah, I'd want in on that case more than ever. But most likely, he will treat me like most federal prosecutors that I deal with on a daily basis. He'll say, let me do this. Let me get you the evidence. Let me get you this and that. And we're going to go through it. I'm happy to help you with that. Because again, what's in it for them? If you really have the goods against my client, I'm going to tell my client it's probably best if you plead. If you don't have the goods, we're going to trial. And you don't want to go to trial if I'm just misinformed. So help me out and give me that information. That's how I would handle it.
What do you think the government could do right now, in conclusion, to fix this? Because again, call it like the Boy Scout in me, Mark, but I want to be able to trust our federal law enforcement. Some of our friends and guests of the show and friends of the program are now in high positions within this administration. They need that trust. It's already been atomized, and in large part, I think that Team Trump didn't break that trust. It was broken decades ago and has been further chiseled away and atomized, but they've inherited it nonetheless, so they own it. And so how do they fix it right now?
Okay, so in fairness, let me start with why this is challenging for them. They're damned either way at this point. If they release anything, it's going to be so heavily redacted that you're going to go off. I can't wait to see your show when you get the redacted stuff, and you're just going to read into things. It's going to be a nightmare. At the same time, there's a nightmare right now. So they need to release stuff. We need to see, okay, we understand you have to protect the privacy of people. And no, we don't want the child porn. But what they release to us will satisfy some, because finally they're showing some transparency. I think, as between the two theories I just advanced, start releasing some stuff. Just show us. Just show us.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the answer.
Yeah, who has a dozen passports from different countries with their names, with pseudonyms on them? And that's strange. Like, again, like little things like that doesn't hurt anyone and proves that you're not protecting a pederast, because why does he deserve any protection? He's dead, right? He's a dead pederast. So why does he deserve any protection at all? Who's being hurt by this? Just out with it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And in the abundance of caution, you tell me that certain things can't be released because it might affect the victims. Okay, I'm going to give you that in the abundance of caution. But there's so much in a case. I get handed gigabytes of material, and so much of it is just innocuous. It doesn't have to deal with victims. Okay, give us that. How about, let's start there.
Yeah, let's start there. It'd be nice to start. Mark, maybe Maybe you can get a job at Maine Justice.
No, thank you. I respectfully decline. Thanks.
Start advising Maine Justice. We'd be happy with that. Thank you for joining the program, Mark. Godspeed. Here's Mark's social media right here. You can check him out on X. Got 20,000 subscribers there. And he follows 0. There you go.
Somebody stole my account, so that's no longer me anymore. Just find me on Instagram. Anyway.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Mark. Godspeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel like we need our verse of the day more than ever today, and I need my blackout coffee more than ever today. Where is it? In fact, I have plowed through a pot of blackout coffee. Yeah, plowed through a pot today, and we are rocking and rolling and ready for Student Action Summit this week in Tampa. It's going to be great. Also have my daughter's 5th birthday this week. One of the major motivators for staying on top of this story is that I have my own kids, and that's what motivates me. I have those kids, and I could not imagine the pains and the horrors of parents having to go through something like this. So, ladies and gentlemen, that motivates me, and also blackout coffee energizes me and gives me the energy to keep going. Hard work, grit, and the American dream is what makes and grinds blackout coffee. It's damn good coffee. It's made right here in the good old U.S. of A. by 30 hardworking Americans in a 64,000 square foot facility here in the state of Florida. It's premium small batch and roasted coffee. It's the best coffee out there. There's no grift, ladies and gentlemen. It's just American values that pump through our veins. I drink the coffee black. That's how you know if it's an actual good bean. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a delicious cup of coffee. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Use the code Benny for 20% off your first order. Support the American dream. Drink Blackout. blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Stop settling and drink real coffee. And here's a real verse of the day for you, ladies and gentlemen. It is, hold on. There we go. 2 Corinthians 5:7. For we live by faith and not by sight. That's right. This is I think it's the opposite when it comes to the topic subject matter that we were talking about. We literally need to see the work to believe it. When it comes to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and when it comes to our beliefs in our Heavenly Father, we have faith in that. That makes all the difference. And we do understand, as we have said many times on this program, no kings except for the King of Kings. Having faith in men or political parties or women or leaders of this world, you're always going to be disappointed. There's always going to be letdowns. It won't be the first, it won't be the last, right? And I'm not blackpilling or dooming. I'm doing my best to help out my friends with stuff like this, sort of explaining the energy of this audience. This audience is who I answer to on a daily basis. And we read the comments and we understand the frustrations. Mortal men and political parties and corruptible institutions, they will let you down. The DOJ, the FBI, they will let you down. Faith in our Lord and Savior will not let you down. It is eternal and never changing and pure and truly just. So, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you, pick up your Bible, pray and read, and trust in God. And trust in this, that in the end, we win. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
What did you do? What did you do? Up. This is no place to die. No. No.
The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings, and their dying legacy, media dillweeds. Soon will the Benny Show come to mind, the salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun, we sail for number one. Show come to mind, the salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun, we sail for number one. The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest king.